Everyone thought he was a lonely orphan, but his life changes when his childhood crush turns out to be a super dangerous spy and marries him. Asano was a happy young boy, but everything changed one day when his entire family got killed in a tragic car accident. He was the only one who was able to survive with scars and bandages. This scares him so much that he refuses to make any friends, because he can't bear to see them get hurt. The one person who decides to stick by him is his childhood friend Mutsumi Yozakura, who is the only person he ever talks to. Several years have passed by since then, and they have both entered high school, but even after a month of being in the class, he refuses to make any friends. A small group of 3 guys constantly ask him to hang out and to be friends, but he keeps rejecting them every single day, whereas Mutsumi has gotten friendly with everyone and has become a high school idol who is every guy's crush. She walks over to Asano and sits down with him to eat food and tells him to go out with the boys sometimes as they seem friendly, but Asano refuses to make any friends and instead turns it around, claiming that if she wants to be so friendly, why didn't she go out with the 3rd year who confessed his love for her? She tells him that she was not interested and takes out her lunchbox, but just as she was about to feed him, Hisa, who is the vice principal of the school, intercepts the bite and starts eating it. Asano is surprised as he never heard him coming, while an annoyed Mutsumi tells him to go away. He tells her that he can't stop himself from having her tasty home-cooked food, but decides to leave before telling Asano to meet him in his chambers after school. Later that day, Asano heads over to his office, confused about why he wants to meet with him. He enters the room and is greeted by Hisa, who has prepared tea and asks him to sit down. Asano is extremely uncomfortable because of how close Hisa is sitting, but is shocked when Hisa starts asking about Mutsumi and why is he so close to her. He starts feeling weird, while Hisa starts showing him pictures of Mutsumi ever since she was a 3-year-old child, which is very weird as they have only known Hisa for a month. He continues telling Asano about how hard it is to keep boys off of her, and how he had to beat the crap out of the 3rd-year guy before he promised never to look towards Mutsumi again. Alarm bells start ringing in Asano's head when suddenly Hisa takes out a knife and puts it at Asano's throat in a swift movement, telling him to say his prayers. When everything seemed lost, a white-haired girl enters the room through the window, stopping him and uses a flashbang to escape alongside Asano. He wakes up a while later in the evening and finds himself surrounded by a bunch of unfamiliar faces. His social anxiety kicks in and he starts running away into the wall, confused about where he is. But Mutsumi tells her not to worry as these people are all her siblings and he is in the Yozakura house. She introduces everyone, as the white-haired girl is called Fuda, the green-haired guy is Shinzo, the pink-haired girl is Shen, the furry is named Kengo, while the buckethead is named Nana. She tells him that they are a family of spies and feels relieved after finally telling him the truth after hiding it for 10 years. He starts freaking out, but she tells her not to worry as spies are very common nowadays and you can even book them online. He still thinks it's a prank and grabs a gun from Shinzo thinking it's a toy, but it ends up shooting, which scares the crap out of him as his whole life turns upside down in a matter of minutes. Fuda tells him that they are freelancers and actually have a 4.8 star rating on Trustpilot for completing their job. Kengo tells him that Hisa is the oldest sibling who stays the most in the limelight in the spy magazines and is responsible for boosting the image of their family so much. Fuda tells him that Hisa is the best spy in the entire family and apologizes on his behalf for endangering his life. She tells Asano that when Mutsumi was a child, there was a big accident in which she got terribly injured and Hisa took all the blame on himself. Ever since then, he has become obsessed with the job of protecting her sister no matter what. But all these years he let Asano slide because he was a childhood friend. It all changed recently when they got an online tip on Twitter about someone planning an assassination for Mutsumi. This gave Hisa the excuse to get rid of Asano as well. Suddenly an alarm starts sounding in the house, and everyone starts getting on their feet as Fuda tells him that Hisa must have entered the house to finish him off. Asano starts freaking out, but she tells him not to worry as he is probably the safest with them, but honestly tells him that even while fighting 5 against 1 their average win rate against him is only 30%. She turns towards Asano and tells him that the only way his life would truly be safe is if he marries Mutsumi right now. She explains that their household has an unbreakable rule about not killing any family member and even Hisa wouldn't break this rule. All Asano has to do is to exchange rings with Mutsumi and the marriage would be complete and they could live as a family. The word family triggers his PTSD again, and he starts breathing heavily, but Mutsumi tells Fuda that it would be very cruel to Asano, who is scared of making connections with people. Fuda apologies for being insensitive, and all of them start getting ready to beat Hisa up, when suddenly they notice that he has already entered the room and is sitting between them. He turns toward Shinzo and tells him that he destroyed all his traps and tells them to hand Asano over, but Fuda steps up to him and grabs his tie. She starts swinging him around the air before slamming him to the ground as Shinzo uses his robot arms to pin him down and Nana takes some steroids to punch him in the face, while Kengo and Shin take Asano away with them. Unfortunately, Hisa is unhurt and uses his special move to blast both of them away while he stands up, telling them that they leave too many gaps in their attacks. Asano is stunned to see how strong these people are, while Fuda tells them that she will buy them some time. She runs over to him as Hisa starts using his spider wire ability to block all her attacks before tying her up to the roof. Shin tells Kengo to hide Asano somewhere while she takes out her phone and activates some drones that descend from the ceiling and start shooting at Hisa. Meanwhile, Tengo takes them to a different room and together with Mutsumi, they put Asano behind a hidden picture frame. A little while later, Hisa enters the room after destroying all the drones without a single scratch on his face, only to find Mutsumi and Asano together in the room. He tells her to hand the boy over, but she starts running towards him with a gun alongside their dog. But Hisa is leagues above them and ties her up with her wires before removing her mask to reveal Tengo inside. Knowing that it's of no use, even Mutsumi reveals himself wearing Asano's disguise and tells Hisa that Asano is of no danger to her, but Hisa tells him that there is only one way he won't harm Asano, and that is if she agrees to never leave her home. This catches her off guard as Hisa starts walking towards her, telling her that she will never have friends, never have any romances, any fun, and even will lose her internet privileges, but at least this will ensure that she will stay safe forever. He hugs her as she starts crying as she knows there is no other option, but Asano, who was watching everything through a peephole, reveals himself and tells Mutsumi that she doesn't have to do this. Hisa tells him to piss off as he has no use of him anymore, but Asano shouts at Mutsumi to give her the ring as he is ready to make her his family. Mutsumi cries tears of joy as she takes out one of the rings and throws it towards Asano, who jumps forward to grab it, but to their dismay, Hisa is much faster and uses his spider wires to trap both him and the ring at the last moment. Just when Hisa thought it was finally all over, Asano shows him his tenacity and strength by powering through the wires that cut his hands to shreds, but he grabs the ring and wears it on his finger, completing the marriage and officially becoming a family member as the others watch. Mutsumi hugs him tightly, while Fuda tells a distraught Hisa that now he can't hurt Asano and will also have to train him so that he can protect Mutasumi at all times. Later that night, Asano gets up to return, and even though Fuda offered to drop him back home, he refuses, and decides to head home together as he thinks Hise needs more mental support right now. He lays down on his bed, looking at his ring and thinking about the crazy day he has had before drifting into a deep sleep. The next morning, he wakes up by an alarm, and the moment he turns his eyes up, he spots Hise standing on top of him with a knife in his hands. He tries to shank Asano, but he rolls away just in time to protect himself, which impresses Hise as he claims it was just a friendly test. He asks what the hell is Hise doing in his home, and he replies that this is the traditional wake-up call of the Yozakura family. Asano rightfully thinks that Hise was just trying to kill him. But Hise claims that this is all part of his training because to be a spy, he needs to sleep while basically keeping his eyes opened. He then tells him to get ready for traditional Yozakura morning exercise and uses his wires to completely tie him up in the air. Meanwhile, Mutsumi was making lunch for the day and hears Asano screams, so she rushes up to see what's happening only to find him suspended mid-air, while Hise forces his body parts to stretch. She shouts at her brother to let him down, but Hise simply looks at his watch and tells her that it's time they all left the house. He quickly grabs Mutsumi and their bags before jumping out the window as a bomb explodes inside Asano's house, blowing it to smithereens. Hise puts them down and explains that Asano's house was rigged with a bomb sometime last night. He promises to explain more about it, but tells him to get one thing in his brain, which is the main goal of the family, is to protect Mutsumi at all costs. He then tells them to get inside the car, while Mutsumi helps him up. Inside the car, Hise talks with Shinzo, who found out that the bomb was rigged inside the kitchen, which means that the target of the assassination was Mutsumi. Asano is very confused, but Hise replies that information spreads very quickly in their lives, and the news about Mutsumi's marriage has spread like wildfire, and almost everyone knows about it. He is still confused and asks why would they target Mutsumi, and Hise replies that the answer to that is very simple. He claims that Mutsumi is the 10th head of the Yozakura family. Hise further elaborates about their family history, and over the years they always took part in espionage because their bloodline has a special power which gives the Yozakura family children superhuman abilities. According to him, in every generation, one of the Yozakura children are born without any superhuman abilities, and those have historically always been the head of the family. Hise claims that even though the head doesn't have any supernatural powers, they are the only one who could give birth to children with superhuman abilities. This means that without the head, the Yozakura lineage and its superhuman people will simply go extinct, and that's why Mutsumi is the legitimate head of the family and the only person who can keep their bloodline alive, and gets a bit pissed off at the fact that such a loser ended up marrying her. Because their family is so old and famous, they have tons of enemies that want to eradicate the Yozakura family, and the best way to do it is to get rid of Mutsumi. While he was saying this, a car approaches behind them, and some people load and shoot a rocket launcher at them, which the driver manages to dodge in time. Asano gets scared, while Hise seems completely chill, while their car gets shot at by multiple machine guns. He tells him not to worry as the car is bulletproof and tells the driver to go faster. The enemies give chase and take out a heavy-powered machine gun and start shooting at the limo. While Hise calmly drinks his tea, Mutsumi tells him not to worry as their pet dog Goliath is the best driver around, which freaks him out even more, while the enemies shoot rockets at them. The sharp turns end up spilling Hise's tea, which pisses him off, so he jumps on the roof and simply uses his wires to block all the bullets while the rocket guy shoots another RPG at him, which gets utterly destroyed by his wires. After styling on them, he throws his wires and cuts the pursuing vehicles to shred, making them explode, and comes back inside as if nothing happened. He tells him that he has married Mutsumi, which means it is now his responsibility as well to protect Mutsumi at any cost. He hands Asano a gun and tells him to kill anyone who he suspects and shows him the Twitter account of the person who rigged the bomb at his house. According to Hise, he is one of the best bombers alive and is incredibly dangerous, but one flaw in him is that he is addicted to social media and basically exposes his plans himself. He tells Asano to take care of Mutsumi for the entire day as he has to attend to another job, and threatens to kill him if she even gets a scratch on her. During the pee period, he ends up getting a notification on his phone as the bomber tweets that the second bomb has been set already. He looks around and spots a shadow moving through the corridors, so he immediately heads inside towards the infirmary where the nurse asks if he wants anything, so he simply moves away. Back inside the class, he watches Mutsumi during the lunch break as she talks to her friends when suddenly he gets the notification that the third bomb has been placed as well. He looks around defeated and realizes how hard Mutsumi's life is. While he was deep in thought, the three Gus walk up to him and offer him some chocolate, which to their surprise he readily takes and eats. This shocks them as they ask what happened to him, as he wouldn't even speak to them before. Asano totally forgot about his social anxiety, but it starts creeping back in and he blacks out. He wakes up in the infirmary being overlooked by Mutsumi, who asks whether he is fine. He thinks about how nice she is and asks whether she is sure he is the right person for him. He claims that even after being childhood friends, he never knew about her family or the fact that she has to fight to survive each and every day. Hearing this, Mutsumi gives him a karate chop to the head, telling him that he is wrong and that he is the one who entered such a crazy family like his, and in truth, she always wanted to marry him. This relaxes him a bit when he suddenly spots a bomb placed on the ceiling of the room about to go off. The bomb explodes with a loud bang, destroying everything inside the room. But Asano manages to save Mutsumi by hiding beneath the couch. He realizes that the bomber is much smarter than they gave him credit for, and he was putting out updates on Twitter to distract Asano and making him focus only on Mutsumi. He removes his coat and sure enough, there is a small bomb attached to his shirt about to explode. He realizes that the bomber knew Asano would stay closeby, so he used this to his advantage and basically made a bomb out of Asano, knowing that it would definitely hit Mutsumi as well. Realizing he doesn't have much time, he decides to sacrifice himself to save Mutsumi and jumps out the window, accepting his death, but to his surprise, Hayes saves him at the last moment as he hangs by the wires. Hayes commends him for his actions and tells him that his job got over quickly, so he came to check on them. Asano looks at the bomb to realize that one of the wires got inside the bomb and stopped its timer, saving Asano from certain death. Hayes tells Asano that they are family now and family comes first. He promises that even though he hates Asano for marrying her dear sister, he would still give his life away to make sure Asano stays safe. He pulls Asano back inside, and while playing with the bomb, he tells them that their job isn't over yet. Just then, the other siblings also arrive in the room, and Shinzo delivers a handcuffed bomber on Hayes' feet. Hayes ties him up with his wire alongside the bomb and throws him out into the sky, where the bomber explodes in a fantastic show of fireworks, while the Yozakura family alongside Shinzo watch it from the couch. The next morning, Asano wakes up after having a nightmare in which he watches helplessly as Mutsumi gets kidnapped. After waking up, he feels a little groggy and ends up stepping on to the tail of the doggy, who gives him a nice love bite on the arm. He comes down and is immediately patched up by Mutsumi, who apologizes for the actions of the dogs and starts playing with it very cutely. This reminds him of how sad his dream was, and to make sure it never becomes the reality, he goes up to Futa and begs her to train him so that he can become stronger. He claims that he wants to be able to protect Mutsumi from every danger, as even last time he was barely able to save her by luck and would have died if not for Hayes. She tells him that he is naive if he thinks that he can become strong so quickly and shows him her strength, while explaining that she started training in all the different forms of martial arts when she was just 3 years old and went on her first deadly mission at 6 years old. This means that even for someone with Yozakura genes, it took 3 years to master the martial arts, but it would be much longer for a normal person. She tells him that he is naive if he thinks that he can become stronger just on the basis of his emotions, but is willing to give him a chance. She asks him whether he is willing to get into the Yozakura all-out training program, which is probably the fastest way anyone can get stronger. He gets excited, but she tells him to hold his horses, as she puts the condition that he has to stay here in the Yozakura household for a complete month, and only then his real training will start. He thinks it would be super easy as he just has to stay here, but the moment he gets up, a trapdoor activates, and he only barely manages to grab the edge as he looks down to see sharp spikes beneath. Futa comes to him and claims that she forgot to tell him, but the entire Yozakura household is rigged with deadly traps for spy training, so it's not going to be easy. But if he manages to survive, she will train him further. The next morning, he wakes up to the alarm sound of the ugliest looking bird, but because he doesn't wake up in time, a bomb ends up going off inside the room. He somehow manages to get out of the smoky room, but activates another trap as a flamethrower emerges behind him and starts burning everything in its way as he tries to run down the hall. He finally reaches the breakfast table where Mutsumi tends to his wounds, and he asks how does she manage to evade all the traps. She replies that the traps don't activate for her, which surprises him, but Shin explains that the traps are controlled by a computer, and once a person is able to dodge and disable all the traps, they get accepted as a house member by the computer and get the privilege to activate or deactivate the traps. She further tells him that normally a person can probably clear all the traps in 2 years, which is a very long time, but before Asano could argue, he starts feeling a pain in his stomach. Futa looks at him and explains that all the food in this house is laced with a small amount of poison to build the tolerance against it, which won't kill them but will definitely give them diarrhea. He immediately gets up and runs to the bathroom, only to see that it is completely locked and won't open unless and until he picks the locks and cracks all the codes. From that day on, Asano's hellish daily routine begins, and while everyone else in the family is able to shut the bird down before it could explode, Asano ends up falling victim to it once again. The fridge is covered with lasers, so people need to be careful, but it isn't a problem for Shin, who uses her drones to get what she needs, or Futa, who uses her superhuman speed to get her drinks, but Asano ends up triggering the trap, which reveals a bunch of machine guns that shoot immediately. To turn the TV on, he needs to use a gun and shoot the power button on the remote. But the recoil is way too much for him, and he ends up falling down every single time. At the lunch table, he still is unable to get used to the poison or crack the codes to the washroom, even with Mutsumi's moral support, and when he tries to take a bath. The shower is meant to teach him how to survive Russian interrogation, which he hates. The next day he goes to school and looks like a total corpse, barely answering any questions. It turns out that he has been forced to wear a 30 kg shirt to help maintain his basic strength even while resting. After another tiring day, he tries to head back to his bedroom, but spots Mutsumi, who has slept while working on the desk. He puts a blanket on top of her, and inspired by her hard work, he goes out and starts practicing his shooting skills. Mutsumu ends up waking up and takes him inside, where she offers him some tea and tells him to take it easy as he has already protected her before. She reminds him that once when she got in high school, there were a bunch of bullies who were jealous of her popularity, so they tried to take her into the shed and cut her hair off. But he appeared at the last moment and took the scissors out of their hands. Before he began cutting his own hair, the bullies thought that he was a brain-dead psychopath and got scared away, which saved Mutsumi from getting her hair chopped off. He promises her that he will get stronger and will always stay by her side, and heads back to sleep. A couple of weeks pass by, and he has learned to finally deal with the birds, shutting it off easily, and walks down to the living room by easily dodging the laser traps before he takes the pistol and shoots the power button to turn on the TV. Shinzo commends him for his skills, but Asano replies that he still can't change channels. Just then, Shin arrives inside the room and hands Shinzo the progress report of Asano ever since he came here. Later that day, the tubhead teaches him how to escape the poison gas trap, and he is even able to survive through the basic poisoned food. But when he tires the milk, he ends up getting sick again and runs off to the washroom, only to get stuck with the codes again. Suddenly, they realize that something is wrong and find him barely conscious on the floor. Futa immediately takes him to the infirmary, where they check him out, and it turns out that he got a fever because of exhaustion. She then notices something and tears off his skin, only to reveal that he was wearing a fake bodysuit, while actually he is completely battered and bruised from the training. He didn't want Mutsumu to worry, that's why he asked the furry to make him a bodysuit while getting healed by the buckethead. She tells him that his results were extraordinary and they couldn't have been achieved without training yourself to death. She tells him to chill out and hands him a book about coding. She tells him that he needs to be on bed rest till he has completely read the book, and only then he is allowed to take part in the training again. A week passes by, and finally, he is able to crack the locks of the washroom, making everyone celebrate as he has finally passed the Yozakura house member test and now is accepted by the computer. To his horror, Shinzo takes out a 100 kg shirt, claiming that they can increase the intensity now. While Shin turns the difficulty of the traps from normal to hard, he realizes that his adventures are just getting started, as he has a long way to go before he can protect himself and Mutsumi from every danger. The next morning, Mutsumi cooks breakfast once again, while Asano enters the kitchen trying to put on her undergarments. She looks at him as if he was a freak, and tells him that he should worry about his weird fantasies and desires, as no matter how disturbing they are, she wouldn't divorce him. He claims that this is all a misunderstanding, and he just wants to practice his disguises. Suddenly, a beautiful blonde woman appears in the doorway, asking whether everything was alright. Asano doesn't know who she is, but Mutsumi immediately recognizes that it's Kengo with his disguises. He immediately starts smothering Asano, trying to weird him out, but Mutsumi tells him to knock it off and leave him alone. Just then, Haiz also appears in the kitchen and asks Mutsumi for a goodbye kiss before he leaves, and this was too much as she simply smacks both Kengo and Haiz on the head. Later that day, he meets up with Shinzo, who is about to go on a mission alone. Asano asks whether it's a dangerous mission, but he tells him that it's a low difficulty mission as he simply needs to find out information about a counterfeit money operation and it shouldn't take much time. Asano wishes him luck and leaves for the school alongside Mutsumi. While walking down to their school building, a ball traveling at a high speed almost hits Asano, but without even looking he grabs the ball and then throws it back with an incredible power. Later in the afternoon, both him and Mutsumi head on to the roof to have some lunch. When Mutsumi tells him that he doesn't know it yet, but his strength and skills have increased a lot because of the training. He walks so silently now that people are starting to call him a ninja. After that, she asks whether he is free after school today as she needs some help with her work. Asano obviously agrees and heads back home where she sits down on her desk and starts stamping a horde of paperwork while telling Asano what to do, as he brings more and more documents, which she analyzes at a super high speed, and also finds errors and other problems in them. She makes Asano her paw and tells him to send emails to some of the investors to increase their stocks, while telling Asano to ignore the forged divorce papers that Hayes has created to try and break their marriage. While shuffling through the files, she notices that one of the reports by Kengo seems to be incomplete, and because he has done this several times before, she gets pissed and takes Asano into Kengo's room. The room is completely filled with his clothes to the brim where they can't even see anything. Mutsumi tells him to come out, and he magically appears on top of his clothes mound, while Mutsumi tells him to complete his report and submit it immediately. Kengo doesn't take her seriously and simply starts eating his sushi, while telling Mutsumi to stop acting like a grandmother. This pisses her off, and she grabs her handcuffs to lay down some Yozakura-style punishment. Kengo realizes that he is in danger and jumps out of the mound to escape the room. Thanks to his training, Asano has become faster and blocks his way immediately. But Kengo is smarter and forces him to drop his guard by becoming Mutsumi. He then runs past him outside, while an angry Mutsumi activates the hibernation mode of the house to completely bar it from the outside world as giant walls are erupted all around the house. She tells Asano that there is no way of escaping this house once this mode is activated. Meanwhile, Shinzo crawls through the air vents as he spots the giant operation being run by a millionaire who has already put 60% of his counterfeit currency in circulation. He travels through the ducts and realizes that these people are working with a highly intelligent person who designed all these safety measures. He puts on his Apple Vision Pro, and unlike in real life, his glasses are actually useful as he is able to see through the containers to find a bunch of fake money. He drops down the hatch to find a secret case, which he is able to hack, and gets the framed picture of a note, which might be very important. Before he could do anything though, an alarm is sounded and he starts running away. Back at the Yozakura house, Mutsumi starts checking all their rooms one by one. She goes into her room where she uses an infrared device to check for his signs, but doesn't find anything. Asano is awed at the amount of hobbies she has, as he looks at the painting she recently made. They then head over to Shin's room, who is busy playing a physical game which she is not very good at. They then head over to the Buckethead's room, who tells them that he will explode Kingo if he sees him. They finally head over to Heise's room, only to find the entire room covered with Mutsumi's pictures. Asano wonders whether Kengo could have escaped, but Mutsumi tells him that it's impossible with the house on lockdown. Suddenly, all the other siblings meet up with Mutsumi and Asano asking whether they were able to find Kengo. When suddenly Asano hears something and turns around to see Kengo's face on Mona Lisa. As it turns out that he was hiding in the picture frame, Kengo immediately runs away and around a corner, while Asano follows him, but suddenly screams as he falls down. Mutsumi runs over to check on him, and finds him on the ground rubbing his head, as he claims that Kengi threw the frame at him and ran inside the cavity in the wall. Mutsumi shouts loudly, claiming that he must have found a way out of the lockdown made, and angrily makes her way back to Kengo's room, claiming that she will remove the lockdown soon. As soon as Asano enters the room though, she immediately handcuffs him and claims that she is not as stupid and knows that Kengo is impersonating Asano right now. She claims that there is no way to escape the lockdown, so Kengo must have switched places with Asano and hid him, in the hopes that Mutsumi will release the lockdown, after which he could run away. Kengo accepts his defeat and removes the mask, and together they start looking for the paperwork she needed. Later that day, Asano eats the curry made by Mutsumi, which is very tasty, so he asks for the secret ingredient, and Mutsumi replies that it's cyanide. Asano immediately starts feeling sick, and excuses himself to pick up a call. He picks the phone only to find Shinzo on the other end, screaming at Mutsumi for help. They get on a video call and Shinzo cries that he ended up getting in a gunfight, but he didn't expect so many guys, and now all his bullets are over and he has no weapons. She tells Asano that Shinzo is an extremely good spy, but he only depends on his weapons, and if he doesn't have a weapon, he becomes a super big wimp. She asks whether Asano can take his weapons to him, and he immediately agrees. He dresses up and carries a small bag as he enters the highly secure building and starts walking through the corridors. Unfortunately, he is not fast enough and gets caught by a guard who puts a gun to his head. He remembers his training and pushes the gun back before grabbing the arm in a lock as he pummels his face with his elbow. Hearing this, a bunch of other guards arrive at the scene. He slams one in the face with his knee, but gets caught by the other guard. The third guard tries to stab him, but his clothing protects him, as he punches him away before breaking the last guy's nuts to secure a victory. To his surprise, another guard arrives, so he quickly grabs his gun which Shinzo gave him, and uses it to shoot a massive electric bolt at him, which incapacitates him immediately. He finally finds Shinzo, who immediately holds on to him for dear life, and thanks him for the guns which he keeps rubbing against his face. Suddenly some more guards enter the room, but Shinzo's personality changes as he gets up and shoots all the guards within a split second before giving Asano the framed note. He exits the room and deals with all the goons with extreme ease as he shoots all of them down, before throwing a grenade at the last group and shooting it mid-air. He then takes Asano as they start exiting the building, but Asano ends up getting shot in the leg by a sniper. He falls to the ground as he starts bleeding out, while the sniper tells Shinzo to drop his weapons. Shinzo follows the commands to make sure Asano survives and drops the gun. But Asano remembers that Shinzo can turn anything into a weapon, if it has a good grip, so he throws a fork at him, which he grabs and shoots it at the sniper's barrel, causing it to misfire. This gives him enough time to grab his gun and shoot the adversary, saving Asano's life. By the time night falls, Shinzo starts walking back while carrying Asano on his back as he thanks him for saving his life. Asano thanks him back, saying that he would have been dead if it wasn't for Shinzo saving his life from immediate death. Meanwhile, a hobo enters another facility and beats every single guard there with a hammer, asking them for the location of their leader, but they all refuse to give away the location, so he bludgeons them to death as he takes out the picture of his next target, which turns out to be Asano. Several days have passed by since the freaky shootout incident at the factory with Shinzo. Asano's leg has healed quite a bit, and the new spy family member Asano walks down a street by the side of a lonely road. It is dark already, but he has a bright look on his face while talking to Mitsumi on his cell phone. She is telling him the backstory about a special Ferris wheel in their city. Legend has it that a long time ago, a couple had gotten into a horrible argument with each other which quickly turned into the biggest fight they had ever had. But after going on the Ferris wheel, they forgot all about their argument and fell in love again. Ever since then, it has been called the matchmaking Ferris wheel. Asano giggles at the silliness of the story, and she continues to tell him that she would also like to spend a day with him there on their next day off, riding the Ferris wheel, since the rumor is that any couple that watches the sunset together from it will be happy together for a long time. He blushes a little as she continues talking, but her voice trails away into the background as he sees a white sedan pull up next to him on the side of the road. He watches intently as a man emerges from it. He is dressed shabbily in gray clothing and his hair covers most of his face, but Asano stands there and stares as the mysterious but scary-looking man turns around slowly and makes eye contact with him. Mutsumi notices that he isn't replying to her anymore, so she calls his name. But in a serious voice, he tells her he needs to hang up now and keeps the phone away. The man from the car walks in his direction and uses Asano's name to confirm his identity. Asano is a little freaked out by this stranger, knowing his name, and continues observing him as the man puts his hand in his coat and slowly pulls out a police ID card. He introduces himself as Hoto and says that he is a police officer from the Koizumi precinct. Without any further explanation, he asks Asano if he would mind coming with him to the police station for an interrogation. Without much choice to refuse, Asano complies with him and goes to the police station, where he is taken into a dark interrogation room with only one small light bulb providing light. Without wasting any time, Hoto pulls out a laptop and shows him a photo that was found on the dark web. It showed Asano from the fights that happened a couple of days ago. Seeing the photo, he is shaken to the core and his face goes completely pale as he realizes the photo is available for anyone on the internet to see. The Yozakura siblings had assured him that they are very careful in covering up all the secret activities and missions that they engage in. So how had his photo reached the dark web? Hoto continues showing him more images which clearly show Asano using illegal firearms, breaking in and entering private, being involved in the car chase on public roads where Mitsumi's pet was driving the car, as well as being present when the ceiling bomb was detonated at his school. Asano thinks to himself that he wasn't actually behind half of these incidents, but he keeps his mouth shut when Hoto questions him and accuses him of all the crimes. Hodo goes on to tell him that he has had enough experience to know that a teenager cannot be solely responsible for such mega activities. So it is surprising that there is no photo or video evidence of any of his co-conspirators. He believes that Asano is working with a secret organization who partake in these activities on the down low. The police officer promises him that if he gives the valuable information, they will reduce the extent of his punishments for helping the police. He keeps forcing him to give up any secrets he knows and expose the people who he is working with. But Asano knows that snitches get stitches. He thinks of the Yozakura siblings, and with a fierce look in his eyes, he declares that he does not know anything at all. Hodo tells him to calm down and think it over carefully. He then pours him a glass of water, and without even trying to hide it, he opens a packet and adds a white powder-like substance to the glass. Asano watches him, and Hodo tries to cover up his actions by saying that it is just added minerals and nothing sus at all. However, the boy immediately identifies it as a truth serum and refuses to drink it. What Hodo lacks in being discreet, he makes up for in simple force. And before Asano has the chance to react, he grabs his face and pours the liquid down his throat. Thankfully, after having trained with the spy family, he is able to pull out the liquid into one giant bubble and spit it out of his mouth. When Hodo sees that the truth serum does not work, he directly resorts to violence by pulling out a hammer and smashing the table. Asano's reflexes kick in, and he is able to quickly move out of the way and falls onto a bag nearby. He sees a red liquid flowing out of it and assumes it is blood as Hodo confirms his fear and tells him that is a drug dealer who he recently unalived. He goes after him again and pins him to a wall with the hammer still in one hand. After giving him one more chance to give up some information, he begins to bring his hand down to bash up Asano, but Asano pulls away his hand and the wall gets smashed instead. To his surprise, he sees Hiza slyly smiling at them. It turns out that Hodo was an old friend of his who helps to cover up the Yozakura activities. He was set up to test the loyalness and resistance of Asano. As it turns out, he had passed the test with flying colors and impressed the usually emotionless Hodo. The next day at school, Hiza, who is also the vice principal, takes up a class. Asano is beyond exhausted and is doing his best to keep his eyes open, but with the quietness of the class, he is tempted to give in and take a short nap. Just seconds after he closes his eyes, he sees a chalk moving at sonic speed fly right next to his head and penetrate the wall behind. He is wide awake again and using more code. Hiza tells him that he needs to train to fight off the sleep because if he doesn't, he will send more chalks flying his way. Mitsumi tries to fight her big brother and stop him from overworking Asano, but Asano agrees to train his brain to require less or no sleep. Using the duster, Hiza releases a thick smoke that puts the rest of the class to sleep, but Mitsumi is saved by her gas mask. Asano falls asleep, but even in this state his trained body is able to react instantly and block off any chalks sent his way. With his training going so well, Asano is sent on his first mission to an amusement park to find a couple who are allegedly carrying guns with them. He is tasked with discreetly uncovering them and taking away their weapons. As he sits at the park, Mitsumi appears and tells him that she will be joining him for the mission. He is thrilled to have her there and hopes that he can have a good day with her so she will see him as a good husband. They see three suspicious couples and one by one follow them on the various roller coasters and games. Asano keeps noticing a lovey-dovey couple dressed in matching clothes who keep doing romantic things for each other. He tries to take inspiration from them and picks up a rose to give Mitsumi. The first two couples turn out to be harmless, so they stalk the final couple dressed in suits in the restaurant. Mitsumi gets up to buy them drinks and Asano notices the man pulling out a box from his coat. He pulls out his own gun to get ready for a fight, but it turns out the man was simply about to propose and it was just a ring in the box. Asano is about to be relieved, but just then he hears loud fighting happening between the lovey-dovey couple. They are throwing insults at each other and the boy walks away from the table. However, in a shocking turn of events, the girl pulls out a gun and aims it at the boy. He pulls and Uno reverse and takes out a gun to aim at her. The restaurant descends into panic and people begin rushing out the door, which Mitsumi also gets trapped in. The psychotic couple opens fire at each other, sending bullets all over the place. Asano ducks under a table to protect a boy there. He draws his gun and swiftly disarms the psycho couple with just 2 of his bullets. They are taken away by the police and the day is sort of saved by Asano. To end their time at the amusement park, Asano and Mitsumi go on the matchmaker Ferris wheel together, where he gives her the rose which was slightly damaged in the shootout. She blushes and takes it as the Ferris wheel rises to show the beautiful sunset. If the legend is true, they might be lucky enough to make it as a happy couple for the long run. A couple days pass by, and it turns out that some person has been trying to hack into the household files about all the members of the family for the past 4 days, and Shin has been trying to repel the cyber attack without sleeping for even a little bit. After a while, she is finally able to trap the hacker into a reverse hacking procedure. But the hacker uses the age-old trusted method of pulling the cord out to protect herself. Shin thinks that she has finally defeated the hacker. But it turns out that the hacker seems to have gotten most of the files about Asano anyways. Shin finally takes a break and goes out of her room only to find Asano and Mutsumi getting ready for school. She tells them about how some hacker was trying again and again to get Asano's files, but she thinks that she was able to save it and has updated the system. Asano doesn't like the sound of it, as he thinks that trouble might be coming his way, but doesn't think much about it. Later they move out of the house on their way to school, when suddenly Asano senses something wrong and pushes Mutsumi behind her, just in time to dodge some very sharp needles that hit the ground. He spots a slender figure behind the pole, and decides to make a run for it alongside Mutsumi. He tries to run through random alleyways, but can't seem to shake the attacker off, which forces him to face her. He gets ready with his stun gun as he looks down the alleyway, but the attack comes from above, which he is somehow able to block and pushes the girl away. The attacker seems to be excited at the fact that Asano is so powerful, and tells him that she loves him and wants to kill him. Mutsumi suddenly realizes who she is, and tells Asano that this spy's name is Kiri, who carries a bunch of needles around with her, and is known as the Manhunter. According to her, this woman stalks the men she ends up getting infatuated with and follows them after finally killing them with her needles. This seems to annoy the girl, who tells Mutsumi to never call her something vulgar like a manhunter ever again, or she will stab her in the eye. The girl seems to be swooning over Asano, as she claims that she saw him for the first time on a video in dark web, and ever since that day she has been completely smitten by him. She tells him that he is pretty famous in the underworld right now, as she pulls out a poster with the picture of Asano claiming that he has a $100,000 bounty on his head right now. She claims that this worries her as she suddenly throws some needles in the air, and a guy falls from above with a gun in his hand. She claims that a lot of people are after Asano right now to claim the bounty, but she isn't after the money and only wants to kill him for love. She tells him that she knows everything about him, like he never walks through a garden even in a mission, always tries to repair any damages, and even pays for the ticket before riding it when on a mission. Even Mutsumi agrees that this is pretty wonderful, while Kiri tells Asano to start living with her forever. He calmly backs off and tells her that he can't do that because he is married to Mutsumi and will never leave her side. Kiri starts crying at this, claiming that Mutsumi is just an ugly thought, and she must have brainwashed Asano into staying with her. This pisses him off, but he keeps his mouth shut as she tells them that she wants to kill Mutsumi and take Asano away. But Hise has told her not to touch even the hair on her head. This confuses them as Mutsumi asks whether Hise knows about all this. Kiri claims that no one can target anyone in the Yozakura family without the knowledge of Hise, so she took permissions from him to kill Asano, and he didn't mind at all. In fact, he even gave her the security codes to his file, which is why she was successfully able to hack through all the data. She then swirls around and showers them with needles, but they all land around them as she shows how capable she is with her weapons before telling Asano that she will see him soon as she jumps over the body of the attacker and walks away. Later in the class, the teacher announces the arrival of a new transfer student that turns out to be none other than Kiri. She gives a very warm greeting, and the guys already start simping for her. The teacher asks her to sit beside Asano, which scares him, and just as she was running over to the seat, she intentionally falls over and shoots a needle at him, which barely misses him as he uses a notebook to block the hit. Ever since then, his days became a game of trying to dodge the needles and make sure he stays alive. Kiri covers his entire seat with poisonous needles, puts a needle in her pencil. This all becomes a habit to him, and while eating lunch with Mutsumi, he dodges all of them without even looking. Even after all this, the entire cat and mouse game starts getting to both of them as they get tired of all this. Kiri cries on the desk as Asano blocks another one of her attacks, so out of frustration, she throws a lot of her needles in the air that get stuck in all the classmates, knocking them out. She tells him that this technique allows her to control anyone, and she commands the entire class to subdue Asano. He doesn't want to hurt random innocent people and ends up getting captured while Kiri gets ready to finish the job. Thankfully, at the last moment, Matsumi intervenes and tells the stalker to knock it off. But before they could talk, the window opens and the assailant who Kiri knocked out before jumps in with a handgun and fires a shot at Kiri. Thankfully, Matsumi pushes her out of the way but ends up getting grazed by the bullet herself. This pisses Asano off, who pushes everyone from top of him and shoots a stunning bullet at the attacker, quickly dispatching him as he runs to check on Matsumi. Kiri seems to be confused at Matsumi for trying to save her, but she replies that she is glad that someone apart from her is able to see how great Asano is, and this makes her really happy. Soon she becomes inseparable from Matsumi and makes her new goal to kill Asano so she can have Matsumi all for herself. This bothers him, but Matsumi tells him to think of her as a little sister and nothing else. A couple days later, Shin ends up calling Asano in her room and claims that she wants to play some games with him, which will also be a part of his training. Matsumi tells him that Shin takes her games very seriously, and last time when Shinzo tried to play with her, he had to stay up 3 nights in a row before he simply got knocked out. Asano starts playing the game where Shin takes the lead and starts destroying the enemies, while Asano gets the hang of it. Soon they get to the final boss, which turns out to be a steam engine which needs to be stopped. They mash the keys as hard as possible, and soon are able to clear the level as the engine stops. Suddenly the news comes up and a reporter exclaims that a train that was hijacked by some people containing hundreds of innocent lives just got stopped all by itself, and all the hijackers were found unconscious. This makes him realize that Shin simply converts real-life missions into games where there is no extra lives and no retries. This ups the pressure a little bit as they head off for the next mission, which turns out to be even more dangerous as a group of terrorists have taken a helicopter with the intent to 911 it into the nuclear power plant and create another Chernobyl. She tells him to try his very best as she starts maneuvering through the complex landscapes and attacks the enemies. Meanwhile, Asano is unable to find a way to move through the obstacles and keeps getting stuck to a point where he ends up glitching out and starts phasing through walls and doing all kinds of weird stuff. Shin ignores all this and starts making her way up to the final boss, and after jumping in the air, she delivers the killing blow to the boss, eliminating it entirely. Surprisingly, the match isn't over yet, as the terrorists had a plan B, and they initiate hundreds of drones all at once to destroy the power plant. Even Shin thinks that this might be out of their hands, but Asano uses his craftiness and revives the boss with a potion before using it to kill the hordes of enemies. They also get aided by Kiri, who joined from her own computer, and together they destroy all the drones, winning the game and stopping the terrorist attacks. Shin, however, is not pleased at the fact that Asano was taking advantage of glitches, so she forces him to play with her for 2 nights straight, after which he gets knocked out as well, wondering what his next mission will be. A couple days pass by, and one morning, while Asano was doing his GigaChad training as he did weighted push-ups with 500 kgs on his back, he gets a call from Nanao, who claims that he needs help. Asano asks what's up, and Nanao claims that he is currently on a top-secret undercover mission in an evil lab where scientists are trying to make bioweapons. He claims that they have already created a pill which, if explodes, can instantly kill everyone outside in a 10 km area. This is all pretty serious for Asano, but Nanao talks about it as if it's an everyday matter. He tells Asano that he used his chemicals to make the entire lab sleep, but he doesn't think it would be safe for him to bring the potent bioweapon outside. So instead, he decides to gulp it down like a champ and claims that a human body has a lot of natural defenses, and his body especially is very good at dealing with things like this and will probably easily neutralize it. The only downside to that is that he immediately starts feeling very sleepy and starts acting like a drunkard. He tells Asano that he needs him to come and fetch him from this secret lab, as he can't let the scientists and the security find him while he is sleeping. Asano immediately asks him about his location, but he only provides him with a half-assed location before falling asleep. Asano gets worried and immediately dresses up before leaving for the lab location. He somehow manages to get inside the general location of the lab, but he finds it a bit weird because this all seems way too easy till now and he has seen no one. He turns around the corner and finds a bunch of guards just unconscious on the floor while he moves through the area with his gun pointed ahead. He T-ranks whether this is all Nanao's doing, but he doesn't think that this is the way Nanao does his job. He moves through the area when suddenly he hears a guard, but before he could deal with him, a weighted chain strikes the guard and knocks him out. Immediately 2 young men come out of the shadows who seem to know Asano as they ask whether he is also here on a mission. The green-haired guy named Sui walks up to Asano and introduces his yellow-haired friend as Oga and claims that they both work for a government intelligence unit. Asano remembers hearing about these government spies who are supposed to be top class in their jobs, unlike many of the freelance spy groups. Sui claims that they were sent to neutralize the lab and asks Oga whether he can hear anything. Oga seems to have superb hearing as he immediately senses the enemy. Sui starts walking ahead wishing Asano good luck for his mission, but Oga has other plans as he grabs Asano, claiming that they could need some allies. Asano doesn't know how to feel about this makeshift alliance, but he at least knows that they are not his enemies as they breeze through the guards, dispatching them with exceeding ease. They finally make their way through the inner lab and Asano immediately enters to find Nanao laying on the ground. He checks on him to find out that he is still alive, but seems to be in a bad condition when suddenly the chain flies towards Nanao. Thankfully, Asano instantly swats it away with his knife, which breaks on impact and also hurts his arm. He asks what's wrong with them, but Sui replies that they are sent here to neutralize the lab and have eavesdropped of his conversation with Nanao, which gave them the information that he has ingested the bioweapon, which makes him a threat itself who needs to be dealt with. Asano walks up in front of Nanao and claims that they will have to go through him first as he takes out his stun gun, while Oga tells him not to do it. Sui, however, is not this generous and uses the special thunder breathing that Zenitsu taught him to move through Asano with surprising speed as he slices through his gun and his body. Asano falls down to the ground as he starts bleeding profusely. Oga seems to be pretty pissed at Sui for this, but the green-haired lad tells him to keep his emotions in check as he walks over to kill Nanao. Asano collects whatever strength he has left and begs Sui to leave Nanao alone, but Sui has no such intentions as he takes out his sword. Suddenly, Nanao wakes up and tells them that he has already neutralized the toxins and they can check the results of his sweat on the test patch. He tells Sui that if he still intends to kill him, at least let him patch Asano first so he can live. Sui, however, seems to be calm and collected as he claims that if the toxin is neutralized, then their job is over and takes the test patch as proof before leaving him with an ointment to heal Asano. Nanao immediately heads over to Asano and tells him to keep his senses, but Asano is too badly hurt and gets knocked out. A couple of days pass by and thankfully he is alive, but also getting punished by Highs who strung him above candles as there has been an article about the Yozakura family getting defeated by the government spies, and the reporter also claims that this is the downfall of the family. This pisses Highs off, who also got review bombed on Google. But before he could do anything, Mutsumi and Nanao smack some senses in him and remove the kinky ball gag from Asano. Mutsumi tells him not to worry, but Asano claims that he deserves it because he let the Yozakura family down. Highs swings him around claiming that he can make it better by defeating the government spies and avenging his loss. He claims that they have special skills that make them the best of the best, and a battle of spies is about intel, so he needs to steal intel from them. The next day, Asano starts tailing Sui, who uses his sword to shred a delinquent's clothes before he walks near Asano and asks what he wants. Asano is shocked to find his cover blown so easily and honestly replies that he is here to learn from him. Sui claims that he doesn't really care and Asano can do whatever he wants. Immediately after, Sui leaves and starts walking at extremely high speeds, forcing Asano to run behind him. Asano tries to catch up to him by jumping through the crowd, but Sui simply uses his sword to unclothe him, after which he gets caught by the police for public exposure. The next day he tries to follow him again while on a train, but Sui does the same once again, forcing him away. The third day he hangs atop a building while Sui and Oga have their lunch, and after they are done Sui again unclothes him before they walk away. The next day Asano is able to tail them till the evening when they are fighting with some ruffians. Asano also helps by getting rid of them, which impresses Oga, but Sui again tries to unclothe him, only this time, Asano manages to dodge it a little bit and manages to save his dignity by making sure his pants were still there. Oga laughs at this, which pisses Sui off, and he loots both of them of their dignity right there. That evening Nanao heads down into the kitchen, only to find Highs chopping some crispy water. Nanao asks whether he has seen Asano and Highs replies that he found him on the front door as usual without any clothes. Nanao asks whether he put Asano back in his bed. But Hayes replies that he thought Asano would serve better as a chopping board. Nanao punches him away and puts Asano back on the table, where Asano apologizes for being so weak. Nanao tells him that he is a very cool person because he always does things in his own unpredictable way. This suddenly makes him realize something about Sui, and he goes on to tail him another day. This time he manages to do so for a full day, and by the time night comes, Sui attends to his last task of cleaning a gravestone and commends Asano for being the first person to tail him for a full day. To give him the proper respect for that, Sui claims that he will treat Asano as an equal and finish him off. He takes his sword out and attacks Asano once again like so many times before. But this time Asano manages to grab his hand into a lock before throwing him up in the sky. He realized after getting slashed up so many times that no matter what, the first attack that Sui delivers is always towards the center of the body, which is a predictable habit. Sui manages to fall back on his feet easily, while Asano stands there as he still got slashed a little bit and starts bleeding. Sui commends him and tells Oga, who was trying to hide, that he can come out and treat Asano. Oga immediately patches Asano up as he finally gets over the hurdle in his way with the name of Sui. Soon everyone forgot about his defeat against Sui, but the spy newspaper picked up on his naked sightings and called him a pervert, which is a new problem that he doesn't know how to deal with, even though Mutsumi promises to love him even if he is a pervert. Couple days pass by when one morning Mutsumi asks Asano whether he could help her with an errand, and he obviously agrees. They start walking through a seemingly popular park as Asano wonders what errand might it be that requires him to carry so much stuff on his back as if he was a pack mule. She tells him not to worry and keep walking when they arrive near a bench where the familiar green-haired face was waiting for them. Sui gives them a curt greeting while Mutsumi asks how he has been. Asano can't get his head around what's happening and asks what all this is about. Mutsumi claims that they have some work with Sui and that's why she came here, but Asano still doesn't understand and asks whether she knows him. Mutsumi smiles and tells him not to worry about Sui as he is just a friend, which makes Asano worried as his ex said the same, but Mutsumi claims that you meet a lot of people when you are in the spy business, so it's okay. They all start walking as both Sui and Mutsumi talk, while Asano walks behind them like their servant. Soon they all enter a cafe-like establishment, which confuses Asano as he thought they were going on an important work outing, but he follows them regardless. Inside, the cafe looks like any other high-priced Starbucks knockoff, and like a white girl's with too much money. Sui starts ordering a coffee whose name I can barely pronounce. Asano is just as horrified while Mutsumi gets moist because of his coffee ordering skills. Soon the barista pushes a bunch of different buttons on the device in front of him when suddenly a trapdoor appears beneath them and they all start falling through it. Asano is left alone with the huge luggage to free fall while Sui Princess carries Mutsumi as they start talking with each other. Sui welcomes them to the government spy building while Asano tells her to keep his hands off his bride. Mutsumi tells him not to worry as he is just a friend, which makes him realize that Mutsumi belongs to the street. Sui produces a cup of tea from his ass, and they both start drinking while he tells Asano to keep his eyes peeled forward as this might get dangerous. Suddenly an arrow whizzes past his forehead, which is followed by a bunch of more arrows and darts, some spikes and even high-powered lasers. Sui claims that this is designed to be a prevention measure against infiltrators as well as basic training. Sui calmly and elegantly wards off all the arrow and darts with his sword, while Asano tries to jump and dodge anything he possibly can. Soon Sui elegantly lands on his feet with Mutsumi, while Asano falls face forward on the ground. Sui immediately tells him that he should move away as a huge metal ball almost falls on top of him. But at the last moment a woman intervenes and punches the ball into a million different pieces as Asano watches her in awe and disbelief as she asks whether someone as weak as Asano can actually protect Mutsumi. They all sit down and it turns out that the entire bag that he was carrying was filled with sweets as they wanted to have a tea party here. The woman eats an entire cake while Sui takes small bites. But Asano is still not completely normalized as he watches them, unable to understand what's happening. Mutsumi finally explains that the woman is named Rin, and she is the classmate of Hai's, but they never liked each other and were always at odds. The one thing that they both seem to share, however, is their love for Mutsumi as she starts coddling her before moving over to Asano, claiming that she wanted her married to a strong man who could protect her without fail. She tells him that Sui explained their encounter and called him a turd face, but Sui corrects that he called Asano a dirtbag who is extremely weak for a spy. Mutsumi, however, comes for his defense and tells Rin that even if he might not be as experienced, his soul and will is just as strong as Hai's. Before they could do anything else, though, the walls start shaking and break from one side entirely, and from the fallen debris and dust, Hai's walks with his suit. angry at them for stealing Mutsumi away without his permission. Rin steps up and starts walking towards him, as she tells him to come later as they are having a tea party, but Hayes has heard enough and tries to slash her with his wires. Fortunately for Rin, she is strong enough that a single punch of hers completely demolishes his wires, but they are both hell-bent on fighting each other. They get ready and the fight starts as they start trying to attack, block and counterattack all at the same time with such quickness that Asano could barely see their hands moving, just by the intensity of the fight. The entire facility starts breaking down, and a red alert is alarmed for the employees to immediately evacuate the area. Mutsumi tells Asano that it happens every single time, which shocks Asano, while Sui tells them to stay back as he will try to break their fight off. He jumps in with surprising quickness with his sword drawn, but he is no match against these monsters who immediately use their abilities to swat them away as they continue their fight. Suddenly, Mutsumi jumps ahead and stands in between them, forcing them to stop. But it is too late as both Hayes and Rin realize that they can't stop their attacks at this point, which will hit Mutsumi. Thankfully, Asano comes in clutch and shoves her head down at the very last moment, getting hit in the face by both the punches himself that knock him down into Mutsumi's arms. Everything goes silent as Mutsumi speaks up very calmly and tells both of them that if they don't stop their fight right this instance, she will never talk to either of them again. This immediately brings them in line. But Hayes is so scared that he ends up getting knocked out cold while Rin falls to the ground and apologizes to her. She then looks at Asano and commends him for taking that attack, while Mutsumi smiles, claiming that he is strong even if he doesn't look that way. A little while later, when he comes back to his senses, Rin tells him that she has a job for him as she wants him to do some undercover investigation against one of the most prominent politicians. While Mutsumi ties Hayes up, Rin explains that the name of the politician is Kuro, and he has a lot of swing in the public right now and will probably win the next election. This wouldn't have been an issue, but it turns out that this man is truly evil, as everyone thinks he is just a quirky politician who wears weird clothes and dances in his rallies. But he has top-class spies working for him named Red, Blue and Yellow, who are basically his sword, and they go out to extort, bribe, and even murder the opposition for him. The government spies have been trying to find more info about him for a while, but all they found was a very small bomb which was probably bought from outside the country in order to assassinate the opposition leaders. They figured out who was the seller of the bomb, but when they interrogate him, he simply provided the video of his anonymous buyer. Asano watches the video in surprise as it's clearly the politician, but Rin tells him that it's not enough evidence to incarcerate him. He asks why is he being chosen, and she replies that they have been spying on him for a while, and he now has his guard against the government spies. But he might not be expecting an outside spy who recently joined one of the freelancing families. She tells him that they will need to change his looks a little bit, and immediately Sui chops his hairs off, while Mutsumi colors it black and makes him wear a secretary uniform. He looks at himself, horrified to find himself as a crossdresser who catfishes people. Rin tells him that Kuro has recently posted an advertisement for a secretary with the same features and he will definitely hire him. The plan works, and at the very next public appearance, he introduces Asano in front of everyone as his new personal secretary. They all keep dancing as loud music plays behind, when suddenly a bunch of protesters move on stage and start shouting that Kuro is nothing but a tyrant, and if left unchecked, he will become a dictator. After that, everything went to shit as scuffles started breaking out and chaos ensued. During that time, one of the huge woofers end up getting knocked over and were about to fall on top of one of the protesters. But to everyone's surprise, Kuro runs ahead and takes the damage while saving the protester. He claims that the public is everything for him, and he wants people to come up with arguments against him, as that is the only way he could better himself and his party. This touches the heart of the protester, and they shake hands as everyone around cheers on for him. Soon an ambulance is called, and the bloody-faced Kuro is placed on a stretcher. He tells Asano to head back to the office while he gets inside the ambulance alongside the spies. The moment he was out of view, he takes out his bandages and celebrates his little media stunt, which is already going viral on the internet. He praises Red for placing the woofer at the perfect position to fall and asks Blue about the statistics and public perception, only to find out that people seem to like him more after his staged heroic deed. Unbeknownst to them, Asano was listening to everything as he snuck inside and decides to start looking for his actual illegal activities. He searched through his document and everything present in their office, and was practically with them all the time, but still he wasn't able to find even a single piece of document that was illegal. Surprisingly enough, they kept continuing their illegal activities throughout their election campaign with superb coordination. But Asano can't understand how, as they never make any plans or talk about anything illegal. All they do is dance around all day and make his life miserable. Suddenly, he remembers their dance and the patterns in their rhythm. The realization dawns upon him that all this while they were making plans right in front of him through the use of Morse code, but he never caught on to that. Suddenly, he starts listening to their code and finds out that they are planning to plant a bomb inside tomorrow's conference where the current prime minister would be. They plan on committing this terrorist act tomorrow while he was still there so that it would all look like it was done by an outside entity. He planned on faking some injuries on himself and then making a declaration about how he will save the country and take revenge on the terrorists. Asano hears all this, and the next day when everything falls in place, Kuro tries to blow up the bomb, but to his surprise, nothing happens inside. Instead, a bomb goes out in the fountain. As Asano was unable to neutralize it, so he threw it outside. To his shock, Kuro seems to know about this as he brazenly takes out his gun and shoots Asano in the head, claiming that he has another bomb. He activates the other bomb to kill the witnesses, but it turns out to be filled with cotton candy, which catches him off guard. As Asano gets up as well since Kuro's gun was changed and it only had paintballs in it, he takes out another gun alongside his spies, but Sui enters the fray and chops off their guns, which scares the spies who run away, leaving Kuro alone. He grabs another gun, but Sui simply unclothes him and hands him over to Asano to transport him to their facility. While in the van, Kuro starts telling Asano that he knows each and every detail of his life, before claiming that his family didn't die in an accidental car crash. This catches him off guard as Kuro continues that the accident was orchestrated and in fact it was the work of some men because of which he lost his family. Asano loses high mind for a moment as he points his gun at the politician and tells him to divulge all the information while Kuro laughs. Knowing that his plan worked, Asano again asks him how does he know about his family, and Kuro refuses to answer that question. However, he gives him a piece of advice, saying that the world is littered with hidden truths. Suddenly, Asano gets a call from Sui, who tells him that they have an emergency. The deputy prime minister has been abducted, and his condition is being live streamed from an unknown location. The deputy prime minister at the meeting turned out to be a fake, and Sui believes that Kuro planned all that in advance. He wants Asano to interrogate the politician and get him to cough out the location of the deputy prime minister. Kuro hears all that, and he says that the timing is quite convenient because he was also planning on going to the kidnapping site. Suddenly, his restraints come undone, and Asano can just stare at him while he drops his earring. The earring turns out to be a bomb that blows away the whole van with it. Meanwhile, in the Yozakura mansion, Nanao is experimenting on a new chemical, but he messes up and creates a huge explosion. Matsumi comes rushing to his room with a gas mask on and asks if he is fine. Nanao apologizes for damaging the room, but Matsumi remarks that he is in worse shape because his muscles are growing out of proportion all over his body. After that, Nanao resumes working and tells Matsumi that he is worried that Asano might come home terribly injured, which is why he is trying to create a very effective healing potion. He asks Matsumi if she is not worried about him, and she replies that she is also very worried. She has prepared a grand feast to welcome Asano home after he completes his mission. She believes that even if he is hurt after the mission, eating all this food will instantly heal him, and Nanao wants to disagree. Matsumi then wonders what the rest of the family members are doing. Nanao tells her that Kengo is creating a machine-washable face for Asano in case he comes back home unrecognizable. Shin is taking out the computers of their haters so that they won't cause a commotion in case something happens to Asano. Shinzo is really worried about Asano too, which is why he cannot come out of the garbage can. Hais and Futa are just sitting still while having tea. Futa believes that there is no need to worry because Asano can get things done when he has to. Hais is the opposite of her, and he is just wishing for the boy to meet a horrible end. Hearing all this doesn't ease Matsumi's heart even one bit, and she is still anxious about her husband. Back at the location of the explosion, Asano is helping the injured driver by taking him away from the flames. He gets a call from Sui who asks if he is fine. Asano assures him that he is not injured and even managed to save the driver, but Kuro got away. Sui replies that it is not a problem because they were expecting that. He reveals that they were hiding the truth about Kuro's identity from him. He is not just an ordinary politician, but a former spy who was a legend back in the day. Everyone thought that he died 6 years ago, but he then started a second career as a politician. That is why they deliberately had loose security around him this time so that they could figure out what he was planning. They have placed a GPS on Kuro, and Sui tells Asano to return home because his mission is complete now. On the other hand, Kuro takes off the blindfold of the deputy prime minister before taking a seat next to him. This meeting is being live streamed all over the country, throwing the media and general public in chaos. That was Kuro's motive from the beginning. The minister says that he is disappointed in Kuro, who he thought was a committed politician despite his odd activities. He tells Kuro that engaging in such terrorist activities won't change the political situation in his favor. And then Kuro starts taking off his disguise. As he takes off his funky glasses, the minister starts trembling as he notices his pitch black eyes. Kuro says that the minister must have been pretty sure that he got him killed, which is why he did not realize his true identity earlier. The minister finally recognizes Kuro as a spy he dealt with in the past. Kuro then turns to the audience and tells them that today, he will address them not as a politician, but as a man who lost his child. He says that he took revenge on numerous politicians involved in his downfall behind the scenes. However, the deputy prime minister was the biggest culprit, so he wants to deliver justice to him in front of the entire world. Kuro points his gun at him, asking if he will tell the world the truth and end his political career, or will he refuse to answer and die? The minister scoffs, saying that it is a stupid idea to ask politicians to speak the truth, and Kuro decides to end his life. However, the stream gets cut off abruptly, as Asano arrived there on time and shot down the recording device. Kuro is pleased to see the young spy here, but Asano tells him to let the minister go. Kuro refuses, knowing that Asano can't shoot him because then the minister will also be caught in the fire. He fires at Asano's hand, forcing him to let go of the gun. However, Asano uses this chance to close the distance between them and grabs Kuro from behind. Kuro was ready for this, and he simply grabs Asano and slams him to the ground. He knows all about the weapons and fighting techniques used by the Yozakura family, and takes the steel wires from Asano's pocket and ties him with them. Asano wants to know how can Kuro know about it, and he replies that it is because he is great at gathering information and using it to his advantage. Asano asks him why a spy like him turned into a politician and deceived the public. Kuro replies that he has no interest in politics, and he did everything just for the sake of revenge. Asano is curious now, and Kuro tells him that because of his excellent abilities, he was very valued in the political world. He often used to do the dirty work of politicians, but when he went home, he was just an idiot father who loved his daughter. He put on the funky wig and glasses to entertain his daughter on her birthday, and she just laughed at him trying to act like that. She told him that if he wanted to surprise her, he should have not sent the gift in advance. Kuro didn't know what she was talking about, and the girl pointed at a box in the corner that suddenly exploded, taking their entire house with it. Kuro lost his daughter because of the explosion, and he could only cry for her. He realized that his masters had decided to dispose of him now that he had done everything for them. In that moment, he swore to get revenge on them and let them feel the same pain he had felt. That is why he faked his own death and became a politician to get revenge. Kuro claims that once he became a politician, it was quite easy to use his achievements and reel in his targets close and kill them. Kuro points his gun at the minister, saying that he is the last one left now. Asano suddenly lunges towards him, but Kuro's 3 spy guards come there out of nowhere and stop him. Kuro tells Asano that he can't win against them by himself. He adds that since Asano is also someone who has lost his dear family, he does not want to hurt him. Instead, he proposes to tell him everything he knows about his family's death if he steps back now. Asano is tempted, but he tells Kuro that he wants to know about his family, but not if it means someone else has to die. Just then, Sui arrives there, and before anyone can even realize it, he has cut a huge hole in the floor. The 3 lackeys and Sui fall through the hole, and he asks Asano to deal with Kuro and rescue the minister. Asano attacks Kuro, who easily blocks his knife that has poison inside it. He knows about it, and stabs Asano with the knife, causing his muscles to go lax, and he cannot fight back. Kuro hits him away, and Asano lies on the floor bleeding. He tries getting up again, but Kuro tells him that it is of no use. On the other hand, the 3 spies ask Sui if he really thinks that he can defeat them. They show their special abilities. Red specializes in using fire, blue in using high-pressure water that can cut through anything, and yellow in electricity that can fry any computer and any brain. They act like Power Rangers, saying that together they are unbeatable. Sui is impressed by their confidence, and he decides to reveal his trick to them too. He tells them how his trick allows him to move really fast and silently, which is greatly helpful in battle. The 3 spy brothers combine their powers and send a giant elemental ball towards Sui, who uses a special Demon Slayer type move to slash through it in one go. He even defeats the 3 brothers in the same move, and then decides to back up Asano. However, he suddenly feels a presence behind him and swings his sword at it instinctively. There is nothing there, but Sui is sure that someone very powerful was there just a moment ago. Back on top, Asano Asano gets up somehow, and Kuro talks to him about how the pain of losing one's family never truly goes away. He tells the boy that he cannot change anything about his life or his current situation. Asano admits that he is right, but then he remembers one day when he went to pay respect to his parents' grave. Mutsumi was praying by his side, and that gave him a lot of strength. With that in mind, Asano charges towards Kuro, who is confident that he knows about all the techniques or weapons he can use. However, just as Asano reaches him, he uses the silent stepping technique of Sui and appears behind Kuro before he can even realize it. Kuro wonders how Asano knows about it. It turns out that Hise had already warned Asano about the dangers of fighting a pro, because they would always know everything about him. However, that feeling of having all the knowledge can be efficiently used against the pros, because then they lose their ability to deal with the unexpected. He had told Asano that he doesn't even need a perfect or refined technique to take a pro by surprise, because anything that surprises the opponent will work. Asano reaches behind Kuro and grabs his arm, cracking open the antidote to the poison hidden in his teeth. Kuro tries stabbing him with a knife again, but he blocks the attack with a hard synthetic skin on his arms. Kuro loses the knife and pulls out his gun, but Asano is already too close to him to let him take a shot. He pushes his hand back and then jams the gun with a slime. Kuro pulls out his second gun, but Asano chops it using the steel spider wire and then pins him to the ground. Kuro realizes that his excellence in gathering information turned out to be his downfall. He praises Asano, saying that he will become a great spy one day. Until then, he must keep moving forward. Out of respect for his actions and determinations, Kuro decides to share all his information with him. He grabs Asano's hand and puts something there, but before he can tell him about his family, he is shot in his neck. Asano is stunned because he didn't even hear a gunshot, and there should be no one behind him to take the shot. With his last breath, Kuro tells Asano to keep moving forward and then loses his consciousness forever. Sui comes there just then and realizes that another assassin must have silenced Kuro. He tells Asano to be proud that he completed his mission against a much more experienced spy. However, he can only look at the paper slip that Kuro left him. Turns out that the paper had a map which pointed to the location where Kuro had buried his daughter. Asano goes to her grave to pay respects to her as per Kuro's last wish. After that, he puts his hand in a tiny hole in the tree and takes out a box that contains the information he is looking for. Later, Asano returns home, where his family is eagerly waiting for him. Mutsumi runs to hug him, and everyone tells him that he did a great job. While there seems to be something bothering him, Asano can smile when he is with them. A couple days later, Rin calls both Asano and Mutsumi to her headquarters, where they all sit down as Rin congratulates Asano on completing his mission successfully, and tells him that today they are going to celebrate by having hot pot. Everyone sits around the table, while Rin puts an ungodly amount of rice in Asano's bowl, before claiming that she will get everything ready for the hot pot. Asano asks Sui what is she talking about, and Sui claims that every time she arranges for a hot pot, she goes all out and captures and hunts all the animals with her own bare hands before bringing them here to eat. She walks towards a huge cluster of dead monstrous animals, bigger than herself, as she thinks which meat should she use first. Sui walks up to her and tells her that he will chop it up to size for her, so she allows him to do so. He calmly walks up before taking his sword out, and with single elegant slash of his sword, he cuts every single animal to size, perfectly ready for the hot pot. The amazing smell of food covers the entire room, as Asano grabs a bow and starts taking out some soup alongside meat and veggies and hands it over to Mutsumi like a total gentleman. Mutsumi really likes it and thanks him from the bottom of her heart as she takes the bowl. But before she could even take a bite, Hise stuffs Asano's mouth with a bunch of veggies, choking him out as he lays on the ground, while he tells him never to try and portion out food for his sister again, as that honor goes to him and him alone. He quickly gets a bowl of food and tells Mutsumi that he only put her favorite stuff in, but Rin shows this sister-loving freak his place by pushing his head into the bowl, telling him to piss off and stop acting like a jealous in-law. This pisses Hise off, and immediately a food fight breaks out as both of them start throwing food at each other, while the others move out of way as quickly as possible. Toga seems to be really hungry and can't watch all this food going to waste, so he tries to get a bowl full of food before it all spills over, but gets a fish cake to his face which knocks him out in Asano's arms. While this is happening, Sui is being his cool self, as he simply dodges all the veggies and grabs all the meat pieces flying all over the place and starts eating them. He tells Asano that dodging something that isn't aimed at them is extremely easy, as he grabs some bowl and uses his special walking technique to fill both the bowls up with food, which he hands over to Mutsumi. She gives one bowl to an impressed Asano and keeps the other for herself, while Sui tells him to be careful with his walking technique as it takes a toll on their bones and can permanently damage them. Before he can even react, a piece of hot meat slams in his face and he starts screaming, while Sui simply picks and chooses what he wants to eat and grabs it from the air. After a while, they all have finally eaten their fill as both Oga and Rin sleep on the floor, while Sui quickly cleans everything up. Meanwhile, Asano is sitting behind a shelf, looking at the small cube, wondering whether he will actually find the truth behind the death of his family inside of this, as Kuro claimed. Suddenly, he is surprised by Mutsumi, who sits down beside him and asks whether the cube contains information about his family, and he claims that it does. She asks why does he look so stressed, and he replies that even though his body immediately sprang into action to try and save the Prime Minister against Kuro, there was a split second where he was thinking that if he found the culprit who killed his family, he would probably do the same and make it his life goal to eliminate that person. This makes him equal to Kuro, then by what right can he condemn him? He is scared that uncovering this secret might change him, but without saying anything, Mutsumi kisses him on the cheek, surprising him as he looks at her and asks what was that for. She smiles and claims that she just wanted to comfort him a bit when she realizes that the cube ended up opening and a marble falls out of it. Asano grabs the marble and wonders what the hell is it, when Hise comes out and claims that the marble is a special device which contains optical information. But when he looks at him, Asano realizes that Hise must have seen Mutsumi kissing him as blood is pouring out of his eyes as he gets ready to evaporate Asano. But thankfully Rin grabs him from behind and tells Asano to run away quickly. Later that day, both him and Mutsumi return back to their house, and Asano starts feeling extremely tired and his body feels heavy. Suddenly he realizes that someone is literally sitting on his head, and it turns out to be none other than the assassin Ayaka. She stands there in her maid outfit, as Asano asks what the hell is she doing here. She claims that Mutsumi asked her to stay here, and Mutsumi agrees, claiming that from now on, she will be staying here as a live-in maid, and will be taking care of day-to-day tasks. Ayaka immediately starts dancing around Asano, claiming that she knows everything that has happened till now and also claims that she knows about the optical drive that he got. Asano asks how the hell does she know that, but she claims that she is a spy and knows everything before grabbing it out of his pocket. Asano tries to take it back, but Shin enters the room with her sleepy eyes and grabs the marble from Ayaka's hand as she studies it and claims that not only is it extremely old, but it is also a bit damaged. She tells him that it will take quite a lot of time to get the data out of it, while Mutsumi calls Ayaka over to teach her how to make some good tea. Asano asks whether it is advisable for them to have a literal spy assassin in their house, but Ayaka claims that it is perfect right now as Asano's bounty has gone up by quite a lot because of his last mission, and he is becoming very well known in the underworld. Because of that, there will be a lot more assassination attempts, and he needs to be ready for that. To make sure that he trains, she will be trying to assassinate him on a daily basis while he tries to evade her attacks. She throws a bunch of forks at him, while Asano thinks about what kind of life is he going to live from now on. Later that evening, he is so tired by the training that he is unable to move as he lays down on the table, while Mutsumi offers to make him some tea. He thanks her but claims that he wants to take a bath first. He enters inside the bathroom for a refreshing shower when, to his surprise, Ayaka emerges from the bathroom, scaring him and starts clicking his pictures, claiming that it is important for a spy to be vigilant, especially when they are vulnerable. She keeps clicking pictures and then grabs a bottle and starts squirting an acidic solution that burns the walls. Asano keeps dodging them as he tries to move away when, to their surprise, the house defense system activates and shocks the living daylights out of Ayaka in the bathtub. This was not anticipated as she tells him not to come near, otherwise he will get shocked as well. Asano tries to find a way to save her when he breaks the wall and finds the main power outlet. Without a second thought, he jumps into the tub and grabs Ayaka while grabbing the power supply with his other arm. Ayaka tells him to leave her, but he continues trying and manages to short the power supply, creating an explosion, after which he stands on top of Ayaka on the ground. Unfortunately for him, Hise finds him in this scandalous position and grabs a prehistoric torture device because no man should even look at another woman if he is married to Mutsumi. Asano starts running away as Hise chases after him alongside Ayaka, who has fallen for Asano once again as they chase him naked through the house. A couple of days pass by when Asano starts going on his regular mission once again. One such day he forgets his phone, but when Mutsumi tries to hand it over to him, she notices someone named Kaoru calling him. He immediately grabs it out of her hand, claiming that it's no one before cutting the phone and moving outside. Mutsumi doesn't know what to make of it when Ayaka appears behind her, scaring the shit out of her, as she cries claiming that these are the signs of cheating. He goes away early, comes back late, switches off his location sometimes so that no one can track him, gets calls from unknown people, and also manages to evade her when she tried to follow him. She claims that these are clear signs of cheating, but Mutsumi trusts him and tells her not to worry. The next day Mutsumi takes Goliath out for a walk alongside Asano and tells him that she is really happy to spend some quality time with him as he has been really busy recently. Asano smiles at this before he starts asking questions about what breed is Goliath. Mutsumi claims that he is not a normal dog as he has been around for hundreds of years in the Yozakura family and was even a guard dog to her great-great-grandmother. She claims that he is a special mix between a mystic wolf and a dog which makes him able to change shape. Right then, in front of his eyes, Goliath changes shape and becomes more wolf-looking as it increases in size. She sits on top of him, claiming that he is very strong and asks whether Asano would like to sit as well. Goliath would not have that though and flicks him away with his tail, forcing Mutsumi to hand him to leash only. Immediately Goliath takes to the wind as he starts running at an incredible speed, dragging Asano behind and even running through water. By the time they are done, Asano is completely drenched on the ground in a park. Suddenly a couple of kids come around Goliath to look at him and Mutsumi goes over when suddenly Goliath notices something is wrong and an explosion takes place. Thankfully Mutsumi saves the kids while Goliath covers her, but they soon realize that Asano tried to save them and took the brunt of the damage. This pisses her off and she asks Goliath to figure out who did this. Goliath immediately sniffs the detonator and maps out a route through the city to find out where it came from. It turns out that some weird third-class joke imitation planned all this to try and kill Mutsumi as he sits in his mom's basement and looks at his computer, surprised to find her still alive. Suddenly Goliath breaks through his door and enters inside before killing him in an instant. Later that evening, Asano gets a call which he immediately hides and claims that he needs to return back to the house. Mutsumi doesn't ask much questions and tells Goliath to take them back. But to their surprise, this time Goliath allows him to sit on his back as he takes them home. Back at home, he gets immediately attacked by Ayaka, who accuses him of cheating, and hearing this even Hise comes over to torture him. Before they could do anything though, two people enter the room, claiming to be government spies who claim that there have been a misunderstanding and Kaoru is the name of the old man. He takes out the special dark sweet tea leaves which Asano wanted to get as he claims that Asano simply wanted to get Hise's favorite tea leaves which are extremely hard to find. For that he went through countless missions to retrieve the ingredients but wanted to keep it a secret. Hise can't believe that a guy who he antagonized so much would do something like this for him, as he almost chokes himself out of shame. Later that evening they all sit down and have some amazing tea as they discuss about the future plans for the Yozakura family. If you liked this video, make sure to subscribe for part 11.